Everyone. Our next topic is one that a lot of people may relate to. We're talking about grief. Of course, it's sneaky and it catches you at the most random times, sometimes the most inconvenient times as well. But there are ways that you can process this and get through it. Tomorrow is a day that puts specific emphasis on grief, as August 30th is National Grief Awareness Day. It's a day recognized for those that have experienced loss to educate others on grief, the different ways it can play a major part of your daily life as well. Joining us today with more is our licensed gerontologist, analysis, who always gives the best advice when it comes to these topics, Dr. Macie Smith. Thank you so much.
Thank you for having me, Billie
Yes,
Jean.
we really appreciate you coming on. You always break down these difficult topics in a way that we can all consume the information and then apply it. When we're talking about grief, I mentioned it briefly, but you never know when it's going to hit you.
No, you don't. But you know, there's grief, but then there's also mourning. And those two terms are used interchangeably. It's important to know that grief is what you're feeling internally for the loss of something or someone. So you're feeling fear, you're feeling anxiety, you're feeling sadness and loneliness. And then mourning, that's a little bit more long term. That's what you do as a result of those feelings. Have the funeral, eat more, eat less, cook, cry. And so those are the outward signs, but there really is no time frame on how long you grieve or how long you mourn or when you grieve or when you mourn. Everybody is different, but the key is to allow people to go through their process, whatever that is.
And I know, of course, your specialty is dealing with our senior population. How is grief for them? Is there a difference with coping skills?
Well, I think everybody copes differently.
Okay.
I think the longer you live and the more experiences you have, maybe the more losses you've had, you may experience it differently. You may handle it differently. Your responses may be different. But Billie Jean, there are 5 stages of grief. It's denial, then it's anger, then it's bargaining, when you try to bargain with God and say, you know, if you do this or if you allow this to happen, then I'll do this. And then there's depression because that thing did not happen or it did happen. And then it's acceptance. And so people go through those 5 stages at their own time. Stage 1 could be longer than stage 2. And then they could repeat, right? I would say probably this past year and a half, my sister lost her son and her husband within 7 months.
Oh, wow.
And when I tell you, I learned more about what not to say, you know, than what to say in my professional practice. I know these things, but because it was so close to home and so personal, I was saying all the wrong things. And I don't think people realize what you shouldn't say when someone is grieving or mourning.
Yes, and that's why it's so important as a caregiver, as someone that's on the opposite side, that you take steps to be careful.
Yeah.
But how do you know? How do you learn?
Well, you learn because people who are grieving, they will tell you. One of the things that you don't want to say is, how are you doing? Well, you kind of know what's going on with me. You know I'm dealing with a loss, so I'm probably not doing well. Or I know what you're going through, because the next thing you're going to start describing is how you felt when you went through it. So now you're taking the focus off of that person, and it's important. You can lose abilities, you can lose jobs, you can lose safety, you can lose peace. So it's not just the loss of a person. And we also talk about caregivers caring for seniors who may have a debilitating illness or a life-limiting illness. There's anticipatory grief. When you know that the person has a life-limiting illness and they're going to die sooner than later, then you start grieving them before they're actually gone. And so as we wrap our arms around people who are grieving, we have to allow them to grieve. A lot of times you want to say things like, I don't know what to say. I don't know what you're experiencing. I'm here if you want to talk about it. And a lot of times, and what I've learned personally is just really to be present, just to be there. You know, just to show up and do for the person. And the key is to allow them to grieve. Say it's okay to grieve, it's okay to mourn. If my caregivers don't show me any emotions after a certain time, it's like I'm just waiting on them to blow up.
And I know there's not a set plan of action that you can take to avoid going through those emotions or those 5 steps?
Well, you want to.
Yes.
It's healthy to go through. You want to
Okay.
go through those 5 steps. When you don't go through those steps, that's when you're causing harm to yourself. You can make yourself sick.
Okay.
You increase your risk of developing chronic illnesses yourself. And so when my caregivers break down, they always apologize for breaking down. And I say, it's about time. I've been waiting on the breakdown and the breakthrough. Yeah, so you want to go through those processes. So if you've had a loss in your life or in your family and you did not display any of those stages, then you definitely want to find space and solace to be able to do that.
Do you find that when people are grieving, is it always death? Because you could lose a person that's still there, but they're just not the same person that you once knew.
Right, and we think about those who are living with Alzheimer's disease. As the disease progresses, they revert to previous life's patterns in younger days, and so the daughter, the adult children don't recognize this person because of their responses, and so now they're grieving their mom that they knew and getting to know this new person. And so you can also grieve if you had something traumatic happen in your life. You could grieve loss of safety and security. You can lose loss of relationships, divorce. That is a traumatic event. That is a loss. And also loss of lifestyle.
Yeah.
You know, that is a loss. If you lose something and it's hurting you and you're grieving internally, then you want to be able to express it externally.
Any proactive steps that you can take?
Well, you know, I always talk about eating healthy. Food makes you feel good and food can make you feel bad. Exercising, you know, giving your body a chance to fire off those chemicals that make you feel good, like the serotonin, the dopamine. Engaging with people and talking about things and doing things that you enjoy doing. Make sure you have a routine of doing things with people you love and surround yourself with those you love and those you care about, so that way when something happens, because it will happen, you have a village to pull from. All
right. Thank you so much, Dr. Macie Smith. Before we wrap up, tell people how they can stay connected with you.
Well, they can head over to my website, and that's www.drmaciesmith.com, and on social media at Dr. Macie P. Smith.
All right. Really great insights, as always. We appreciate you coming on the show. And don't forget, tomorrow is National Grief Awareness Day. Share this interview with those that you know may need it. I have a feeling there's a lot of people that can pull some gems from everything that Dr. Smith said. All right. We're going to take a quick break. Much more So the City on the other side.